This is the Hoosier Homes Podcast. Here we go. All right, so today we are going to talk about real estate. We're going to talk about kind of a whole lot of nothing, but I want to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of real estate. I don't know if this is going to be multiple episodes or not. I don't know if this is going to do anything besides just scare people off from investing in real estate. But, I think real estate has this this bubble of beauty around it, I guess is one way to put it. It can be very flashy on social media. It can be very flashy on Bigger Pockets, on people's podcasts talking about, I got 100 doors in 1 year and 24 years old and has 3,000 doors and, all these different things. But what people don't talk about is the good, the bad, the bad, and the ugly of real estate. And recently I've been thinking about this a lot, and it feels like the absolute best day of owning real estate is the day that you sell it. Hot take maybe, I don't know. Doesn't really matter to me, don't really care. But you don't have liquidity in your property until you sell it. You can get a HELOC, you can get a business line of credit. And this is another thing. Just because one person has done it doesn't mean that everybody can do it. And just because there's an idea doesn't mean that it works for you. So, in the sense of lines of credits on your property, typically you want to go to smaller banks. You want to go to more local banks, regional banks. If you go to Chase or Fifth Third, they're probably not going to give you a line of credit on your rental property. They will give you a line of credit on your primary home, but they most likely, I could be wrong, but most likely they will not give you one on rental properties. How do I know this? I called them and asked them. I tried to get a line of credit on my properties with the equity that I have. What I have found is that, and I'm pretty sure this is a tale as old as time, people have said this, but working with local banks, more regional banks is where you can get those opportunities, to get lines of credits, to get portfolio loans, to get better terms, stuff like that. I don't use a local bank for purchasing rental properties. I use a lender who uses a DSCR products with different, actual lenders across the country or wherever they're at. But as far as a line of credit, I have talked to a local bank here. I can get a line of credit on the equity of my properties. But the thing is at least this is the way my bank that I've spoken with has it set up. I'm sure there's other options. That's what I'm saying is everyone's got different options. But here they want to have first lien and second lien being the line of credit. So in order to get the line of credit, they would have to pay off the first lien with a loan from their bank, loan that they would service. And then they would give me a line of credit up to 80% of the equity that I have in the property, as long as that 80%, say my mortgage payment, plus if I tapped out the home equity line or the rental equity line of credit, if my mortgage payment plus the payment that would be if I tapped out the line of credit, they still want that to be covered by the rent. So, if my mortgage is $1,000, the rent is $1,500, I'm cash flowing $500. And then if I tapped out the line of credit, if my interest payment on that line of credit for the amount that I spent was $600, they would knock down that line of credit potential. So they will lend up to 80% of that line of credit. They will bring it down to, I don't know, maybe 75, 70, whatever that algorithm is, where they are completely and utterly covered, regardless on if I've got money to pay the difference, regardless if I can handle the negative cash flow. So that's that. As far as line of credit, as far as options, I don't even know how I started on lines of credit. It's very funny that I don't know. But as far as the good, the bad, and the ugly of real estate, I remember what it was. I was talking about, it being a flashy thing on Instagram, on podcasts, on different places where you talk about real estate. The good, the bad, and the ugly. I have seen a lot of ugly from real estate. I've had, we had a flip property where we just finished the flip. The spread on it was probably about, I don't know, it wasn't that great. It was somewhere between like 15 and 20,000, maybe even less than that. We had some stuff during the rehab that popped up that we weren't accounting for, which happens on literally every rehab. So if you don't have a contingency fund, probably should bake that into your flips. But we had just finished. The unit was vacant, listed, everything. Realtor signing the yard, lockbox on the front door. Mistake number one, which is what I learned in certain parts of Indianapolis, is not even in certain parts of Indianapolis, but when people see vacant signs or realtor signs in the yard telling you that it's vacant, they like to do things that are not legal. So we had somebody who was very experienced, by the way. They took the lockbox off the door. They busted, they beat it off the door. Literally, they beat it open, crowbar or bat or something. I don't know. They achieved getting the lockbox open, took the keys, unlocked the door, and then they proceeded to steal the furnace, the water heater, the AC unit, the dishwasher, the microwave, the stove, the fridge. And the funny thing is they didn't just steal it. Like with the furnace, for example, was a gas burning furnace. For any of you who don't know, gas burning furnaces have a gas line. So if you steal a furnace, theoretically that gas line is just wide open. They shut it off, they cut the gas line, and they capped it, which means they know what they're doing. They are experienced, either they're contractors or they are highly effective thieves, which is what I think they were. They're just people who do this throughout the city nonstop. But I lost $13,000 because, part of it was because we weren't covered from insurance on that, which is a different topic. But, we put all this money into a flip. We were only going to make about, I don't know, after everything, after saving for taxes, after all of that, and probably at best, we're talking about 15 grand, which when you think about a flip, you would like to make more money than that. I mean, 15 grand is 15 grand. Don't get me wrong. But when you're leveraging hundreds of thousands of dollars, I think that one was maybe, I don't even know the numbers, but we were selling it for high twos, maybe low threes. So like it wasn't, $700,000, but it's still, when you're taking the risk and you're taking the time that probably took us 4 months to do start to finish. When you talk about the time and the risk of the money, making 13 grand is not really that great. But yeah, we were listed on the market, and I believe we had a showing, and the realtor calls me and says, "Hey, just so you know, there's nothing here. There's no fridge. There's no stove. There's no nothing here." I mean, I literally had showing. I could pinpoint the day. I used to be able to pinpoint the day because we had showings the day before, and I didn't hear anything from it. So overnight, they had stolen all of that stuff. It was bad. Come to find out, my insurance did not cover theft. I had multiple properties at that time, either getting flipped or rentals or whatever. I had multiple flips going on, and I used the same insurance for all of those. And each one of the flips had the exact same coverage, including theft. This one, for some reason, did not. Typically I just copy and paste the terms. Somehow, probably my fault, got missed, and theft was not covered. Vandalism was covered, but they did not destroy a single thing. They just stole everything. So I had to eat $13,000 and ended up making absolutely no money on that deal. It is the good, the bad, and the ugly of real estate. You cannot account for everything. Like, you can do your best homework, you can run your comps, you can stay on budget, you can do all these things, but things happen, and it's not just one property that something's happened. It's multiple. It's constant. Real estate is constant problems. It is. And this is, I guess the point of this is, not to scare brand new investors, but it is to bring some light to the reality of real estate. It is not usually fun necessarily owning real estate. One of the rental properties that we owned in Westfield, A-class area, theoretically you don't have any problems with the tenants, but we had a tenant in a property that, the cops were called no short of 50 times in the 1 year that she lived there. not a great situation from in, a family standpoint for her, like what was going on with her. I feel for her in that situation, but it was constant problems and constant neighbors complaining and constant talking to the police and trying to get her out of there and this, that, and the other. And it just is not, just because you own them in a great area does not make it easy. Just because you own them in a bad area does not make it hard. What makes it hard is that there's people involved, there's tenants involved, there's weather involved, there's there's so many factors. You have a tenant who is not paying, maybe we evict them day 5, day 1, first of the month, rent is due on the 1st. By the 3rd, they get hit with a late fee. By the 5th, it's in our lease personally that we can evict you on the 5th. Send you eviction paperwork because you are late on your rent. Indiana is a no pay no stay state. Completely legal. It's in the terms. Everyone signed off on it. Say that I evict him on the 5th. Just for education, here in Indiana, probably most places, just because I send you eviction papers does not mean anything happens. You get assigned a court date. Typically is a couple weeks out. So say it's 2 weeks out. So you have not gotten paid. You need to float the mortgage that month because you're already halfway through the month just to get to a court date. At that court date, what is typical of the judges we have here is that they will give a grace period for the people who have not paid to move out peaceably. So they usually give them another week or 2. So now you're into the next month. Let's call it 2 weeks. You're exactly into the next month on the 1st. There's no chance they're paying you for the rent for last month and this month. Maybe you get lucky and they're like, hey, I'd really like to stay. I'll pay both months. But if they're not paying already, I don't want them to stay anyways. So if I'm like, hey, I want you to move out, but I'd love for you to pay the rent. And they're like, well, you're evicting me. It's like, you have that conversation like, hey, I'll drop the charges if you just pay the rent that you were due and move out of my property. How many times has that happened and worked? No, not as many as eviction has happened. So now you're 2 weeks in. So now we were in January, call it, and now we're in February. So that's 2 months of mortgage you have to pay. I mean, say in a perfect world, they move out on February 1st. Now, most likely you've got some turnover costs. Maybe you got to paint, maybe you got to clean the carpet. At best, you're probably, getting a dumpster and cleaning all their stuff out of it. So you've got, $400 or $500 in dumpster and labor to clean everything out. Even if you do it yourself, you're talking about a couple $100 for a dumpster. Now the place is cleaned out. You got to get it relisted. If you're using a property manager, we charge a leasing fee. I don't know any property managers that don't charge a leasing fee. So now you're going to pay a leasing fee, whether you pay it, on a out front on a credit card or a bank account, and you just like send it to the property manager, or they keep it from rent whenever it gets rented. Either way, you're paying. So say they get it rented in, literally 1 week. So now we're in February. You evicted them on February 1st, or they got out of the property on February 1st. They got it rented the next week. You get prorated rent for the rest of February minus the leasing fee. If they charge first month's rent, they're not going to take the prorated amount. They're going to take March's amount. So now you're making, part of what you were going to make on a normal rent to pay you back for February. So maybe you recover, a little bit after the clean out, whatever. I mean, if you had to do paint carpet or you had to clean the carpets, do paint, I mean, you're talking about a couple $1,000 to do all of that anyways. The point being is there is so many scenarios in which it does not work out well. You have to be able to float your mortgage. You have to have savings if you want to own real estate. This garbage of you can buy real estate with zero money is garbage, because if something goes wrong, you have zero money. I just put a podcast out. The last podcast we did is buying real estate with low or no money down, and how garbage that is. It is not ideal. It is not good financially speaking to buy real estate with zero money. You will lose. I promise you. It may not happen right away, but it won't be ideal. You have to float the mortgage if they don't pay it, or they will foreclose on you. I mean, if the renter doesn't pay, they get evicted, and you're okay with those consequences. Are you okay with the consequences of not paying your mortgage and having the mortgage company call your loan due and evicting you? People just don't think about this. Your water heater goes out, $1,200. Your roof goes out. You have to replace the roof. At best, you're looking at a $7,000, a tiny little single family ranch home with just no valleys, no peaks, just a straight, A-frame style build with 3 boots, a chimney and 3 boots or 2 boots and no whatever, $8,000. I almost guarantee it. It's like $7,000 or $8,000. And if you're paying less than that, you're going to have to replace it again in 5 years. Things cost money. We are in 2025. Things cost a lot. The decking for a roof, plywood, costs a lot, let alone the labor to install it. It is just so dumb to buy real estate if you have zero money. It is so stupid. Don't do it. Okay. If you have no money, don't invest in real estate. Go make more money first. If you've got $10,000, don't go buy a Section 8 property. I see the gurus, or whatever you want to call them, the successful people on Facebook, Instagram, running their little ads for their course or for just telling you that they drive a Bugatti because they have 1,000 Section 8 properties. I don't care. I don't want to own a Bugatti because that's also expensive and the maintenance is expensive. You bust a tire and you're going to spend 10 grand. It's ridiculous. First off, don't buy a Bugatti. Second off, don't listen to those guys. Section 8, not just Section 8 properties. Just call it low income in general. Right now in Indiana, there's so much activity around low income housing and properties, like $800 to $1,700 rentals. $1,700 not even low income, but you can get Section 8 rents for $1,700. So like, it's like a buzzword right now. Everybody wants to buy a property for $100,000, put no money into it, and make $1,500 in rent. And it's blows my mind when a problem happens and they're like, man, why is there so much maintenance on these properties? It's like, bro, you bought it for $100,000. What did you expect? You think that you found the magic property that nobody else could find that rents for $1,500 and you bought it for $100,000, it never have problems, and then in 30 years you've made $30,000 of cash flow over the last years and you sell it and make $300,000. Like, live in reality. Ground yourself in reality. Things are expensive. Real estate costs money. It's not free to play. You have to be able to float the mortgage. You have to be able to replace. When the furnace goes down, there's another $3,000, if not more. It depends on the size of your house. If you're talking about a smaller little house, yeah, you could probably get a furnace in there for a couple $1,000. And again, if you're paying the cheapest guy to do it, I cannot tell you how many times we have replaced stuff that just got replaced. It blows my mind because people will pay as cheap as they can to have some Joe Schmo go in there and do it. And it looks and acts and operates terrible. It looks terrible. First off, the value of your home is important. If you want to invest in real estate, you should be trying to increase the value of your home, not decrease it. So if you're going to pay the cheapest contractor, you are going to decrease the value of your home. It's not a perfect formula, but I almost guarantee you will. Caulk and paint make up for the carpenter I ain't is a phrase well known in real estate, I believe, saying that like, I don't have to make it look good with craftsmanship. I can cover it with caulk and paint. Painted outlet covers, painted corners, caulked up lines that just look like the amount of caulk that I've seen fixing spaces and gaps is insane. And then 3 layers of paint on top of it over the years of people just whipping paint. Cabinets that are just painted over and over and over. Fresh coat of white cabinets, man. This looks so good. It looks like trash because you can see the drips. You can see the nonsense going on. It is ridiculous that people will just pay the absolute bottom dollar. And honestly, if you want to have a high quality paint job on a cabinet, you might as well just buy new cabinets. I mean, to really do a great paint job on cabinets, it's not cheap. I mean, it's not a perfect formula. If you're going to get like custom built cabinets, obviously I can go spend, $20,000 on cabinets if we're going to talking about a massive, beautiful custom built kitchen. But if we're talking about like, project source cabinets from Lowe's, like it's honestly just as cheap just to put new cabinets in. If you're talking about like 3 floor cabinets, 2 uppers and some countertops, like just put a new kitchen in, man. It will look so much better. And it's honestly about the same price. All of this is to say the good and the bad and the ugly of real estate is that it's not just some flashy, I can buy a property and make $100,000. Like you will have to cover the mortgage at some point. My best deal, I still had to cover the mortgage once or twice. I still had to put some money in it to appreciate the property. And I'm not going to lie, I've had some deals that were killer. Like they were great deals, and we made a lot of money from them. But we've also had deals that we lost a lot of money on. And rental properties, like even just yesterday, I have a buddy who owns a lot of properties here in Indianapolis. He said that with the storms that we had last week, he had, I should pull it up. I don't have my phone, but he said, I think it was like 3 properties flooded. Furnace is toast in all 3 of those properties. Water heater is toast in all 3 of those properties. And he has to get them all the water removed. Like it's literally 5-foot standing water in 3 of the basements of the properties that he owns. He is the owner of the property. He is the one who has to pay for those repairs. The tenant's not going to pay for them. The insurance, he could probably file insurance on those. But even with that, there's deductible costs. There's carrying costs. There's where is the tenant? If you have damage to the property, where's the tenant going to stay? There's, also in regards to insurance, don't put all your weight in insurance. Don't just think, oh, I had a problem here, I'm going to file insurance. Oh, I have a problem here, I'm going to file insurance. You file 3 or 4 or 5 problems, they're going to drop you. I mean, we saw it in California. State Farm dropped all those people when they had a fire. Everyone thinks it's a conspiracy theory because they dropped them right before, but it's also like insurance is a business. They're trying to make money. Are they scammy? I don't know. You can have your own opinion on that. But they're in the business of making money. They're not in the business of losing money. So if you think about if everyone just filed claims for everything and they just never had any consequences, they would lose money. We had a tenant burn down a unit on accident. They left a plastic plate on the stove, on the electric stove, and accidentally hit the burner on, like hit the knob for the burner, turned the stove on, lit the plate on fire, lit the house, burned the house completely black. The entire house is black. I don't know how it's still standing, honestly, but insurance dropped that they did not drop that property. They dropped a different property that had vandalism. But the point is this is where I was going with it. That tenant is going to get sued by State Farm for the damages. And if they don't, I will be highly, highly surprised. Insurance wants to get paid. Insurance does not want to be the loser. They will go after the originator and they will make them pay. It happens all the time where people go bankrupt. People get sued by insurance because of damages that were caused. It's not a free world. This idea that insurance fixes everything, that they'll pay for any problems that happen with my property. They will fight. They will send out adjusters. They will ask you the story. They will call different witnesses. They will do all the things to not pay for the damages. It is not glamorous. It is not rainbows and butterflies all the time. It is hard to own real estate. It is hard to have tenants. It is hard to keep your property in A-class condition when you have other people who don't care about your property living in it. And to boot, if you want to buy D-class properties, don't expect D-class members to treat it like A-class. It's just reality. If you want to buy and operate in the low-income space, you can't expect them to be perfect. You can't expect them to take care of it as if they were living in an A-class property. And it's not pointing fingers at anybody. It's just reality. It's just, this is how they operate. This is how the world operates. It is not out to give you everything that you want to have out of real estate and out of life. It is not going to happen like that. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Theft, burn down units, flooded units, tenant issues. I mean, the list goes on and on. Literally yesterday, having a conversation with an investor who just bought a property. The lease was misrepresented in the sale. I was not the agent. There's different agent involved for sale by owner property. The lease is misrepresented. And now this guy is looking at paying utilities when the lease had stated that the tenant was supposed to pay utilities, but apparently there was multiple leases in play that the for sale by owner seller did not disclose. And yes, nice voice crack. Yes, you can seek damages. Yes, you can sue them. Yes, you can go after them. What are you going to get from that? I have no idea. I have no idea what the outcome is. I don't know if it's rent loss, if it's utility loss, if it's retraction of sale. I don't know all that. I'm not a real estate lawyer. What I do know is that until that happens, you have to pay for the you have to pay for the mortgage. We're going to try and get the tenant to pay for utilities. The story that I'm getting from the tenant is that, the Section 8 Housing Authority, the IHA, the Indianapolis Housing Agency, will not allow for them to pay for utilities because of the rent amount, because of the rent that the last owner wanted to achieve. Typically Section 8 people get sent a check to pay for their utilities. IHA won't do that in this scenario because the rent is so high. They're saying you cannot leverage it like that. If you want this amount of rent, you have to pay for utilities. So now we're looking at maybe the utilities getting shut off because the tenant doesn't want to pay them and the owner doesn't want to pay them. So now what do? We go off of the legally binding contract, which we have as the utilities are paid for the tenant. The tenant has as your landlord pays for your tenant. Who's right? Who's wrong? When were they executed? All this legal mumbo jumbo. At the end of the day, the mortgage is still due the next month. The tenant still has to, the tenant doesn't technically have to pay. They'll get evicted if they don't, but the owner is responsible. It's like the real estate thing, location. Like when you own rental properties, when you own real estate, the owner is responsible. You have to pay the bills or the house will no longer be yours. It's that simple. You cannot just expect somebody else to do everything for you, to pay everything for you, and you just walk off into the sunset with your little cash flow and have a beach vacation. I own 5 Airbnbs. We make $100,000 a month. Now we travel the country with our kids. Like, I don't care. You're so special if that's you. In all reality, like, you bought at the perfect time. You operate perfectly. You pay a fantastic property manager who takes 30% of your profits. And ask any of those people. They also have stories. I promise you that they have stories of prior deals that didn't work out, or they have problems with the current Airbnbs. They have lost money on listings. They have another business that's funding their ability to create and purchase these Airbnbs. Airbnb arbitrage. Maybe you can make some good cash flow there, but you know what you don't get is you don't get appreciation from the property. You don't get the tax write-offs. You can't have your cake and eat it too, people. It's that simple. You cannot expect for everything to be perfect for you every time. I don't even know if people know what I'm talking about. Airbnb arbitrage is when you lease a property and you sublease it on Airbnb. You put it up on Airbnb and you're the renter for the owner. So like if there's an owner owns a property, I sign a lease with them as a long-term lease, paying $1,000 a month, $3,000 a month, whatever it is. I put it up, I furnish it and put it on Airbnb, and I try and achieve more cash flow, more top end than what my bottom end is. So I'm trying to, make $5,000. My rent is $3,000. I had, $200 in Airbnb fees, $100 in cleaning fees, $300 in restock fees. The list goes on. And then hopefully I make a little bit of money. If you're doing that, that's a purely cash flow play. If you're doing Airbnb arbitrage, you have no advantage except for cash flow, nothing. So you better be making cash flow. If you're not making cash flow, what are you doing? It is not worth it. You have to be. Time and market is definitely important. You have to be doing it for long enough, especially on Airbnb. You want to accomplish being a super host. But I just am trying to get the point across that passive cash flow, and I'm not going to do anything cash flow, and I'm never going to have problems with my property, and I don't need to have any money. I can buy properties with lower amount of money down. Creative financing is great. You can acquire doors, but what happens if something breaks and you acquired it because you have no money and you borrowed, you promised this guy 10% to give you the down payment for you to fund this creative deal where you don't have to bring any of my money to the deal. Okay, but if something breaks, are you going to go borrow the money again for 10%? Even if you do, okay, great. Yeah, someone gives you the money or use a credit card. That's going to keep building up, man. It doesn't just go away. The money will keep building up. Sometime you got to pay that bill at some point. You put it on a credit card, you got to pay the credit card. You borrow it from a buddy, you got to pay your buddy. Or no one's going to give you money. That's just how it is. This is the Hoosier Homes Podcast. This is the good, the bad, the ugly of real estate. I've been doing this for 4 years now. 4 years is a very short time as far as time and market compared to some, but I have seen a lot. I don't know. We manage 187 rental properties now. I've closed I don't know how many millions in volume of real estate as an agent. Doesn't matter. What does matter is that I've learned lessons the hard way, that I have experienced being in the trenches with real estate day in and day out for years. And it is not easy. If you think it's easy, go do dropshipping, because you can make infinite money and you never have any problems with dropshipping. This is the Hoosier Homes Podcast. Peace.